Welcome to the Explainer, where we take on complex topics and break them down into clear, dynamic presentations. Oh, we've all been there, right? That sudden flash of sparks because you forgot about a fork, the soup that just explodes and redecorates the entire interior, or, my personal favorite, the burrito that's somehow lava hot on the outside and still an ice cube in the middle. It feels so random and frustrating when it happens. But what if I told you it's not random at all? It turns out there's a fascinating and actually pretty predictable reason for every single one of those microwave mishaps. So, let's do it. Let's dive right in and uncover the hidden physics that makes your microwave oven tick, and sometimes fail so spectacularly. Okay, before we get to the really fun stuff like sparks and explosions, we have to start with the rulebook. Yeah, I'm talking about that user manual that probably went straight from the box into a drawer somewhere. Turns out, it has some pretty critical information. And just take a look at how serious these warnings are. We tend to just gloss over these things, but the language here, danger, warning, and caution, is no joke. It signals very real hazards, everything from electric shock to severe personal injury. These are definitely not just friendly suggestions. And here are the big ones, the golden rules. They're all designed to do one crucial thing: prevent you from being exposed to that raw microwave energy. See, the metal box of the microwave, including that mesh screen in the door, acts like a Faraday cage, and it's built to trap all that energy inside. Tampering with it is a seriously bad idea. All right, now for the main event. Let's talk about one of the biggest mysteries of the microwave, that terrifying little light show you get when a piece of metal accidentally goes for a ride. The manual gives us this super clear list of what's safe and what's not. And you start to see a pattern pretty quick, right? Almost anything made of metal is on that avoid list. Aluminum trays, utensils, even those tiny little metal twist ties. But why? Well, here's the absolute key difference. Microwaves treat metal and your food in completely different ways. They bounce right off of metal, like a mirror, but they pass right into your food and get absorbed by all the water inside it. Now, that reflection creates a big problem. The microwave's energy builds up an electric charge in the metal. And if that piece of metal has any sharp edges, think about the tines of a fork, that charge gets concentrated right at the tips. It builds up and up until it becomes so intense it actually leaps through the air to another point, creating a spark. That phenomenon is called arcing. And yeah, it can seriously damage your oven. Okay, so now that we understand why metal is a definite no-go, let's tackle another classic microwave mystery: that super annoying uneven heating. Whoa, okay, check this out. This thermal image shows what's really going on inside the oven after just 15 seconds. It's fascinating. The yellow and white spots are intensely hot, but the dark blue and black areas, they're completely cold. The energy is not uniform at all. So what causes this crazy pattern? It's a phenomenon called standing waves. As the microwaves bounce around off the metal walls, they start to interfere with each other. You can kind of think of it like ripples in a pond. When two waves meet, they can either team up to make a bigger wave, or they can cancel each other out completely. The same thing happens in your microwave, creating these fixed hot spots and cold spots. And that simple fact brilliantly illustrates the genius of the turntable. It's not just there to look fancy. Its entire job is to mechanically move your food through that fixed pattern of hot and cold spots. It's making sure every part of your meal gets its fair share of the energy. Pretty clever, right? So we've covered sparks and we've covered hot spots, but how does the microwave actually create any heat in the first place? Let's take a look under the hood at the engine of the oven. First off, the microwaves themselves are just a form of electromagnetic energy, kind of like radio waves, but with a very specific frequency, about 2.45 gigahertz. And here's a fun fact. That's the same frequency band used by most Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So if your internet ever seems to slow down when you're heating up leftovers, now you know why. The heart of the whole operation is a device called the magnetron. It's a powerful vacuum tube that takes electricity from your wall and converts it into these high-frequency radio waves. And its ability to cook food was discovered totally by accident back in 1945 by an engineer named Percy Spencer. He was working near a live radar set and noticed the candy bar in his pocket had completely melted. And this is where the real magic happens. So water molecules are polar. They have a positive end and a negative end, kind of like tiny little magnets. The electric field from the microwaves makes all these molecules try to line up with it. But the field is flipping back and forth 2.45 times billion times a second. So the pore water molecules are forced to violently flip back and forth, trying to keep up. All that flipping creates intense molecular friction, and that friction is what generates the heat. So now that we actually understand the science of what's happening inside that box, we can use that knowledge to go from microwave novice to total pro. You've probably wondered this before. Why does the defrost setting feel like it takes an eternity? Well, it's not just in your head. There is a very specific scientific reason for it. Remember how the heating works by flipping those water molecules? Well, in ice, those molecules are locked rigidly into a crystal structure. They can't flip around, which means they absorb very little energy. So the defrost cycle has to be clever. It uses low power to melt just a little bit of the ice, then it pauses to let the heat from that new liquid water spread to the surrounding ice, melting a little more, and then it repeats. It's a slow process, but it's a necessary one. And finally, let's look at 3 pro tips from the manual that are going to make perfect sense now. Stirring liquids, that breaks up superheated spots to prevent those boiling explosions. Never run an empty, that stops the microwaves from reflecting back into the magnetron and destroying it. And piercing containers, that lets all the steam from that molecular friction escape safely. See? It all connects. At the end of the day, just understanding that your microwave is a sophisticated physics tool, not some kind of magic box, is really the key. It's what's going to help you avoid disaster and use it with way more confidence.